Welcome to History in the Shadow. Today we explore 100 historical and hidden wars. I am your host. Please subscribe for more historical videos. Let's start. A History of War in 100 Battles, Part 1. On October 1st, 331 BCE, Alexander the Great faced the massive Persian Empire. Alexander was only 25, but he would prove himself a military genius. Alexander's army had 40,000 foot soldiers and 7,000 cavalry. Emperor Darius had 200,000 men, 200 war chariots, and 15 war elephants. The battle started at midday. Alexander moved his cavalry right. The Persians followed, opening a gap in their center. Persian chariots charged, but were shot down by archers. Alexander saw his chance and charged straight at Darius. The Persian emperor panicked and fled. His army collapsed. Alexander captured Babylon and became the richest man in the known world. On August 2nd, 216 BCE, Hannibal defeated Rome at Cannae. Hannibal had crossed the Alps with elephants to invade Italy. Rome raised 80,000 soldiers to crush him. Hannibal had only 40,000. But Hannibal was a tactical genius. He arranged his weakest troops in the center, forming a bulge. His best troops waited on the flanks. His cavalry was superior. Romans pushed into the center. It bent backward as planned. Then Hannibal's flanks surrounded them. His cavalry attacked from behind. The Romans were trapped. 50,000 Romans died. Only 14,000 escaped. It was Rome's worst defeat ever. On September 2nd, 31 BCE, Octavian fought Mark Antony for control of Rome. Antony commanded 100,000 soldiers and 500 ships with Cleopatra. Octavian had a smaller force but a brilliant admiral, Agrippa. Octavian blockaded Antony's fleet at Actium. Antony's army grew hungry and sick. On September 23rd, Antony tried to break out. Agrippa had 400 ships waiting. When Cleopatra saw an opening, she sailed through with her treasure. Antony abandoned his fleet and followed her. Without their commanders, Antony's fleet was destroyed. Octavian became Augustus, first emperor of Rome. On October 28th, 312 CE, Constantine fought Maxentius outside Rome. Constantine claimed he saw a Christian cross in the sky with the words, "By this, win." Constantine told his soldiers to paint Christian symbols on their shields. His cavalry smashed the enemy wings. Maxentius's army fled to a temporary bridge across the Tiber. The bridge collapsed. Maxentius drowned. Constantine marched into Rome and made Christianity legal throughout the empire. On October 14th, 1066, English King Harold faced William of Normandy. Harold had just defeated Viking invaders in the north. Now William had landed in the south. Both armies had 7,000 men. Harold formed a shield wall on a slope. William had cavalry and archers. The battle lasted all day. William's cavalry charged repeatedly, but couldn't break the shield wall. After 6 hours, William ordered a final charge. The shield wall collapsed. Harold was killed. William was crowned King of England. England became a Norman kingdom. In 1215, Genghis Khan captured the massive Chinese capital of Zhongdu. The city had walls 15 kilometers long and 12 meters high, defended by 36,000 soldiers. Genghis attacked twice, but was beaten back. He called a truce and left. But when the Chinese emperor moved his capital south, Genghis saw it as betrayal. The Mongols returned and blockaded the city. Inside, people starved. 2 Chinese relief armies were ambushed and destroyed. After months, the garrison surrendered. Genghis's soldiers looted the city. The conquest signaled the end of Jin power in China. On June 23, 1314, Robert Bruce defended Scotland against England's massive army. King Edward had 18,000 troops, including 2,500 heavy cavalry. Bruce had only 7,000. Bruce chose his battlefield carefully. His men dug pits and covered them with grass. Behind the traps, soldiers formed tight circles with long spears. On June 23rd, English knight Henry de Bohun charged at Bruce. Bruce dodged his lance and split his skull with an axe. The next day, Bruce blocked the road to Stirling. The swampy ground trapped the English. Bruce's formations held firm. King Edward fled. The English army broke and ran. Scotland's independence was secured. On August 29, 1526, Sultan Suleiman destroyed the Kingdom of Hungary. His Ottoman army of 100,000 faced 25,000 Hungarians at Mohács. The Ottomans had a clever plan. As Hungarians charged, the Ottoman line bent backward like a crescent. Then Ottoman forces surrounded them from both sides. The Hungarian cavalry charged. The trap worked perfectly. Ottomans surrounded them and opened fire with cannon. Over 20,000 Hungarians died, including the king. The Ottoman Empire now dominated southeastern Europe. On September 12, 1683, a massive Ottoman army surrounded Vienna. 100,000 Ottomans besieged 16,000 defenders. For 2 months Vienna endured disease and hunger. The Christian Holy League gathered 85,000 troops. Poland's King John Sobieski was their commander. On September 12, infantry fought for 12 hours. Then at 5 in the afternoon, Sobieski gathered 20,000 horsemen, including 3,000 Polish winged hussars. This was the largest cavalry charge in history. They swept down from the hills. The exhausted Ottomans collapsed in minutes. 15,000 Ottomans died. The Ottoman threat to Europe was over. On September 20th, 1792, revolutionary France faced a Prussian invasion. The Prussian army was advancing to restore the French king. French General Kellerman commanded the position. When Prussians advanced, he stood up in his saddle. He placed his hat on his sword and shouted, "Long live the nation!" His troops echoed back, singing the Marseillaise. The Prussian commander saw their determination and withdrew. There was barely a battle. But Valmy saved the French Revolution. The monarchy was abolished the next day. On October 21, 1805, Admiral Nelson commanded the British fleet against French and Spanish ships off the coast of Spain. The enemy had 33 ships. Nelson had 27, but better-trained crews. Nelson planned to break through the enemy line in 2 columns, then surround and destroy them. Before battle, he sent a famous signal. England expects that every man will do his duty. The British columns sailed toward the enemy under heavy fire. When they reached the line, British guns unleashed devastating broadsides. British gunnery was superior. Persian and Spanish ships crashed into each other in confusion. At 1:25, Nelson was shot by a French sharpshooter. He died 3 hours later. By then, 19 enemy ships had surrendered. Not a single British ship was lost. Nelson became Britain's greatest naval hero. On December 2, 1805, Napoleon won his greatest victory near Austerlitz. He faced a much larger Russian and Austrian army. Napoleon deliberately made his army look weak. The Russians believed they outnumbered him 2-1. Young Tsar Alexander was eager for glory and decided to attack. Napoleon knew exactly what they would do. The Russians occupied the Pratzen Plateau to attack his flank. But this was Napoleon's plan. During the night, Russians spread along the plateau. Then French troops suddenly appeared from the mist and charged up the heights. The surprised Russians fought desperately but failed. By midday the battle was won. Russian losses were 27,000. French losses were only 9,000. It was Napoleon's finest battle. On April 5, 1818, General José de San Martín faced the Spanish in Chile. San Martin had created the Army of the Andes and crossed the high mountains to liberate Chile. The Spanish sent 4,600 troops to recapture Chile. San Martin gathered 5,400 men near Maipú. Using tactics inspired by Alexander the Great, his cavalry swung right against the enemy left while attacking their rear. The Spanish left collapsed, then their right. Surrounded, the Spanish fought bravely but were overwhelmed. 2,000 died and 2,000 were captured. The victory freed Chile from Spanish rule. On October 1st, 1860, Giuseppe Garibaldi defended Italian unification against the Neapolitan army. Garibaldi had landed in Sicily with 1,200 volunteers called the Thousand and conquered it against huge odds. Now 50,000 Neapolitans attacked across the Volturno River from 3 directions. They wanted to surround Garibaldi's army. The battle began at dawn. Both sides fought desperately. The Neapolitans attacked Sant'Angelo and Santa Maria. Garibaldi was almost captured but rallied his men and led counterattacks. He rushed between positions, saving the day each time. By evening, the Neapolitans were defeated. Garibaldi's victory made Italian unification possible. In August 1920, the Red Army marched on Warsaw. Lenin dreamed of spreading communist revolution across Europe. Marshal Pilsudski commanded the Polish defense. By July, 130,000 Russians were bearing down on Warsaw. The Poles had only 68,000. Panic gripped the city. On August 5th, Pilsudski created a daring plan. He would defend Warsaw with weaker forces while his southern armies swung north to strike the Russians in their flank. On August 13th, the Red Army assaulted Warsaw. The 5th Polish Army held the line. On August 16th, Pilsudski's southern armies attacked the Russian flank. By August 18th, they crashed into the Russian rear. The Russian army collapsed. By August 20th, Russians were retreating in disorder. The Poles intercepted them at every point. Poland had won against impossible odds. Lenin was forced to seek peace. Pilsudski's brilliant planning had saved Poland. Between February 19th and March 15th, 1943, German Field Marshal Manstein won Germany's last great victory. After Stalingrad, German armies were retreating. Soviet forces were pushing deep into Ukraine. Manstein saw an opportunity. Both armies were exhausted. He still had panzer units available. His idea was to attack the long flanks of the Soviet advance from north and south, then recapture Kharkov. First, he had to convince Hitler. They argued for 3 days. Finally, Hitler agreed. On February 19th, Manstein's counteroffensive began. The Soviet armies crumbled in days. By March 2nd, 23,000 Soviets were dead with 600 tanks captured. Then came the drive for Kharkov. By March 14th, the city was recaptured. It was Manstein's last triumph. Germany's finest general had postponed Soviet victory by months. Chapter 2. Against the odds. Throughout history, smaller forces have sometimes defeated larger armies through superior tactics, leadership, or determination. Let us explore these remarkable victories. In August 480 BCE, the Persian Empire invaded Greece. Emperor Xerxes commanded 180,000 soldiers and over 1,000 ships. The Greeks had only a fraction of this power. First came Thermopylae. Spartan King Leonidas defended a narrow mountain pass with 10,000 men, including 300 Spartans. For 2 days they held back the Persian army. But a traitor showed Persians a hidden path. Leonidas sent most men south to escape. With 1,400 men, he fought to the death. All died where they stood. Meanwhile, Greek Admiral Themistocles positioned the fleet at Salamis. The Persian fleet followed with 600 to 800 ships. But Themistocles chose narrow straits where Persian numbers meant nothing. On September 23rd, Themistocles sent false news that Greeks would flee. Xerxes attacked immediately. Persian ships entered the narrow straits in confusion. They crashed into each other. Greek ships rammed and boarded them. At least 200 Persian ships were sunk or captured. Greek losses were only 40. Xerxes watched from a mountain throne and shrieked in rage. He ordered retreat. Greece was saved by Themistocles' brilliant strategy. In August 47 BCE, Julius Caesar fought King Pharnaces in northern Turkey. Pharnaces had 20,000 men. Caesar had 4 depleted legions and was outnumbered. While Caesar's troops built fortifications, Pharnaces surprised everyone by charging down one hill, across the valley, and up toward the Romans. Caesar hastily assembled his legions. The exhausted enemy couldn't fight after charging uphill. Romans drove them back and captured their camp. After the battle, Caesar wrote his famous message, "I came, I saw, I conquered." In May 878, Danish Vikings had conquered most of England. Only King Alfred's Wessex remained. In early 878, Danish leader Guthrum attacked Alfred's estate. Alfred escaped to the marshes. In spring, Alfred called his men to arms. They assembled and marched to Edington. Alfred's Saxon warriors smashed the Danish force and pursued them to Chippenham. After a 2-week siege, the starving Danes asked for peace. Alfred demanded that Guthrum be baptized as a Christian. The Danish leaders joined the church. The Battle of Edington saved Anglo-Saxon England and stopped the Vikings. On April 23, 1014, Irish High King Brian Boru faced the Vikings of Dublin. The Viking king summoned warriors from across the north. They wanted to conquer Ireland. Brian gathered his forces. On April 23, the armies met at Clontarf near Dublin. Both sides fought with brutal close combat for 12 hours. Brian's army won. The Viking invaders were pushed into the sea. Many drowned. But victory was costly. Brian's son Murchid was killed fighting with twin swords. Brian's grandson also died. Worst of all, the 73-year-old Brian Boru was killed in his tent by fleeing Danes. He killed his attacker first, cutting off his leg and foot. Despite Brian's death, the Viking threat was ended. Clontarf became a symbol of Irish resistance to foreign invasion. This concludes part 1 of a history of war in 100 battles. Thank you for watching History in the Shadow. Please subscribe for more historical videos. See you in the next part.